The outside world flew by in a blur, from dark and ominous forests to dim and brightly lit city buildings, all flitting by in an invaluable silence on the other side of a smudged glass pane. Pale white and bruised hands trembled behind the steering wheel of the car being driven, but the knuckles whitened even further when their grasp tightened. His back ached, his ribs ached, and he knew the bruise on the left side of his face had darkened considerably. Despite there being some semblance of tranquility on his drive, a large pit of resentment and hot anger swelled within him as he fought to keep from breaking down behind the wheel. He had just left his house of 18 years and was certain that was going to be his very last time visiting there. It was plainly obvious his father wanted nothing to do with him. All his life signified that. He knew his father was a raging alcoholic, has been for as long as he could remember. And what was worse, he was known by several people for beating on his wife and him. His father was fucked up, but his mother wasn't so guiltless either. Hell, she wasn't even there. She left when he was only a kid, and even when she was there, she barely stuck around the house at all. He remembered when his father would yell at her for fucking the most simplest things up. Had to make soup? Well, she kept the gas going on the stove without lighting it. Needed the laundry done? She spilled the bleach or the detergent at the bottom of the stairs. She couldn't even draw a bath correctly without there being some electric appliance plugged in nearby. Thinking back on it all, there were several instances he could have died when in her care. His father always did his due diligence and punished her for endangering practically everyone around her. And that was when she finally left and never returned. He vividly remembered when she had reluctantly taken him out shopping and he was throwing a tantrum for not being able to play with his friends that day, that she was staring at a poster promoting the moving circus that visited the city every few months back then. And from how focused and intently she was staring at it, he thought she wanted to go and watch it. Or join it, he sneered. She was probably feeling pretty at home with the rest of the clowns. She was clumsy enough to join them, he was pretty sure. She was a perfect fit. The circus, last he heard of it, was full of socially inept, attention-seeking psychopaths with danger-prone tendencies. Yeah, she was probably having the time of her life right now while he and his father were left in the dust. Well, who needed her then? Definitely not him, or even his father, but he was going to take a page out of her book and just cut off all contact with the drunk bastard. Not like it really mattered. The only thing the drunkard found of value from him was as his living punching bag, to vent any and all frustrations out on each time he saw him. Nah, he was done. One thing he would admit he learned from the old man that was useful was the fact that there were no women worth a damn. He hated romantic movies with a passion for the fact that none of that was real. There were no soulmates, no girl that was his other half who embraced his flaws, helped him through the hard times, and just listened to his problems instead of vilifying him for any mistake he made. His first girlfriend was someone he had met when he was still going to high school, and she was honestly the closest to being his soulmate than anyone else he'd met. She understood him in the way no one else did, had a connection that would put Jack and Rose to shame. They dreamed about running away together, forming their own map of the world and how they'd conquer it with just them two. Just leaving all their inhibitions and people who'd only hold them back behind them in the dust. She was his only way out from the nightmare he had used to call home. And once they both got a home in the city for themselves, things began to change. Well, they never really settled into the city, just an urban neighborhood a few minutes' drive from the place. But it was just like some kind of switch went off in her, and she started to spend more time away from home and at work. She also began to stop talking to him altogether, with no indication as to why. And because of that, their relationship dropped to just living in the same house status, and he ended up turning to alcohol to forget the sting of it all. Like father, like son, huh? And that was also around the time he got together with his second girl. She was also one he saw in high school, but never really tried to get to know. It wasn't anything serious, he thought. He'd only entertain her interest for until his original girlfriend came back around to him, when she remembered what she was missing.